Did you know that Modern Witches has a Patreon community? There, you can join us at 2 tiers of paying membership and access our monthly coven circles, which are live online gatherings where we discuss our witchcraft and practice magic together, and tune into what it means to be a modern witch at this deeply important planetary moment. We're so excited to be dropping a new Patreon exclusive, which are our mini magic episodes. These will feature practical magic, folklore, history of the craft, as well as ways to deepen your engagement and awareness of witchcraft in this precarious time. We hope to see you there, and if you aren't subscribing to the podcast, please do so now. Your comments, your reviews, they all mean so much to us. Find links to join our Patreon community in the show notes. Blessed be.
Welcome, everyone, to this special episode of the Modern Witches podcast. This theme is a theme that you're really going to like. I hope. I had this idea with my very good friend, Mauricio García, that is here with us today. Hey, Mauricio.
Hello.
And we wanted to do an episode about witchcraft, yes, double yes, but we really wanted to link it to what is going on right now and how it can be helpful for all of us. And so the title is Witchcraft and Revolution. And so I'm going to let Mauricio introduce himself, but just to give you like a little bit of story here that you already know is just like we are going through a climate crisis, really like climate disaster to violent wars, from social fragmentation to the rise of the far right. There's so many things happening like in the world right now that it can feel very overwhelming to understand like how to react to it or how to really help and being a force to stop those insane ideology and action coming at us. But sometimes it can be overwhelmed. We're just human being, and we have also a personal life with our family, kids, friends, parents to take care of. And so having to navigate our personal life and plus managing all the information that is being just pushed on us, and we have also like a strong reaction to do something, it can be we can feel burnout, there's exhaustion, there's the feeling of being lost too. And I think witchcraft can be a really strong support to help us reconnect to our body, and to help us to recognize to our power, really. And so Mauricio and I were thinking of doing this episode because we think we should give you the tool that we learn through like doing readings, through meeting clients, through working on ourselves, thing and ritual that works for us depending of your sun or ascendant or moon, and really work with the cosmos and your body to be able to connect to your strength and also your weakness and know when it's time to come into action or when it's time to retreat and recover. But without further ado, I'm gonna let Mauricio introduce himself. Is a gifted perfumer, is an astrological person that I is like saying that he's not an astrologer, but for me, Mauricio is definitely an astrologer. He just doesn't know it. And of course, I love all your knowledge about witchcraft and ritual. You told me so much. Mauricio and I, we met when we were working at Scarlet Sage, and that particular area that was in San Francisco. And we were chatting. I think I was asking him so many questions about everything. Thank you for all the information, free knowledge that you gave me. And yes, I think like you work with together with scent and emotion, memory and magic. It just helps us to ground us deeply in our body and, while keeping us open to the sacred. And so I want to thank you for that, for sure. And I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. I'm also going to link an episode that you did with Casey in the description. If you want to know more about Mauricio and his magic and his knowledge and his practice of the craft. Yeah, I think I said everything right now. I'm going to let you speak now, Mauricio.
No, well, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to just talk with you and hang out with you. Like, obviously, we got along very, very well when we worked together, and so it's been really nice to talk with you again today. Before we even started, so now we get to share some of our conversation. Um, and we learned a lot about I feel revolutionary work with botanicals and with spirits, and a lot of survival oriented care, whether that meant physical, taking care of your physical body, or your emotional spiritual bodies, or aspects of your bodies, however it is that you conceptualize it, with things like the wildfires. Like, remember, we had the fires and we were making
Mm,
lung syrups for people and kits, and we were shipping them to places, and it was like a very community healing oriented situation. And so I completely agree with you that, like, the world is very much in crisis right now. And we're I don't really know anyone that isn't experiencing it on a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual level. um it's very, we are very connected to each other, whether we're looking at it through like social media, or the media that
mhm.
we consume through our devices, um whether they're phones or TVs or computers or whatever. Like, I think I read somewhere that, like, the modern average person with access to a cell phone consumes as much information as, like, someone would in 40 years, like 400, like centuries ago. Like, it's like we
Yeah.
consume like decades worth of information within a very short window of time.
Hmm.
And, like, that's really overwhelming, like you're saying. And to, like, well, I guess this isn't much so much of an introduction, but I will say a little bit about myself, because I was going to start talking about what we're going to talk about, and
Yeah.
I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. But I am a perfumer based here in the Bay Area. I was born and raised and now once again live in South San Francisco. And I grew into a perfumer, became a perfumer, over the last, I suppose, more than a decade. Now I do have a small line of fragrances I produce in very small batches and very intentionally, called Herbcraft Perfumery. And I'm a teacher and manager for the Ministry of Scent new perfumery studio that's going to be opening later this year, in 2025. And through them, I'm going to be, like, curating a selection of fragrance materials, including a lot of essential oils, where we are working with, like, partners, or with folks like, cooperatives that are sustainably harvesting frankincense, and, like, they utilize, like, geotagging technology to keep track of, like, the where the plants are harvested from, where they're, how much is extracted, who gets paid. And so it's a more technologically oriented, and I would say progressive and sustainable, or ideally renewable, way of producing frankincense resin, which becomes frankincense essential oil. Um, but so, like, that's an example of, like, the kind
Hmm.
of information and the kind of work that I would like to share, and that I would like the perfumery studio to be a platform for. For the fun, it's going to be, or for the decompressing, maybe even, um, it's going to be a workshop space and an event space where people can come, take classes with local perfumers, and also local herbalists who can, teach distillation. And it's going to be a really I think it's going to be a really good space where community can once again interact with botanical species and botanical art forms in the Mission District, because it's going to be on Valencia Street.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. It's so good to have a physical space. I know it's hard to, make people move and come to the space
Hmm.
since COVID
Yes.
specifically,
Hmm.
but We're craving it. I'm craving a space. I know there's
Yeah.
a couple here in San Francisco that are good, but I'm excited to go back to the mission. It's so good for the
Yeah.
for the community, and it's good for San Francisco to have a space like this. So thank you for your work. I'm so excited. I can't wait
Oh,
they
thank
open.
you. Yes, it feels timely and necessary, and like it's going to be just a little, portal where people can come and either learn something or pick up, a rosemary oil or a lavender oil, or, something that will help with protection, with uh,
Mm-hmm.
soothing the nervous system, with cleansing
Yeah.
space. And those are things that I'm gonna be happily nerding out about with people. So
Yeah.
gonna be a really, I think, a good place for people to find some medicine in some form. And maybe even it's just hanging out with their friends in like a fragrance space.
Yeah, because like basically the question is also like how do we feel the impact of the current chaos that is
Yes,
around
very
us
much, right?
in our body, in our mind, and like having a space where we can use sense, which is one of the most important sense that we have that
Hmm.
impacts so much our brain and olfactive
Yeah,
system and our
absolutely.
decision making and can go on and on. It's so important to have a space when you can smell, see what fits you. It's like also hard when you go to a space where you cannot smell the perfume, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Like
How
it's
do you know
already
where
in
you get along?
packaging. There is some space where you can smell, but like often when I go to a store, there's no
Hmm.
way to smell it. And so having a smell when you can test and enjoy and mix, I
Yes.
think having the experience, we don't have the experience on it and what the services that is provided, it's just been great.
Yes, I agree with you. It's really important for people to connect, I think, with their bodies right now,
Mm-hmm.
and with their senses, and utilize the aromas, like it doesn't have to be like a very expensive perfume to, like, engage your senses, of sense of pleasure. Like it could be like a rose bush that you walk by on your way to work. Like there
Mm,
gardens that kind of walk my tourist self walks generally the same path to work, when I'm going from work to bar, or from bar to work. And I walk past these gardens that have some fragrant flowers that just like always kind of help my shoulders drop just a little bit, when I walk past them. And it can be something like that. Like, it doesn't have
yeah.
to be going somewhere to a store and buying something, like certainly not. Like, especially, considering that capitalism is one of
Mm-hmm.
the members of the unholy trinity. Like if
Yeah.
patriarchy and supremacist ideologies, we were saying, were the other two. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's that actually brings me back to what I had wanted to start to say. So maybe we can like just dive
Oh,
into it.
yeah. Let's dive in.
In preparation for our conversation, I actually found myself returning to one of my very very first primer, like as what I can remember reading as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, read whatever I could get my hands on at the library, but I remember finding, I think I saw the, like, in the library listing, like, when the computers where it came into the libraries, and you could look up what books, what library had what book. And there was one that was Practical Elemental Magic by David Ranking and Sarita de Este. um that I was like, okay, like we talked about how we can help people navigate the the
The
signs
current.
with
Mm-hmm.
scent in a way
Mm-hmm.
that was not overwhelming, 12 different signs, which is really cool. And we actually did have that conversation with
Mm-hmm.
your friend Frauke Gallia on her podcast, An Aromatic Life. And she
Mm-hmm.
literally, like, she actually organized it and kept us like on track, and it was so great. But we're like, okay, like we did that, so like how can we do something that's a little more open-ended, I guess, now, or
Yeah.
just a different theme. And so I returned to that book on elemental magic because it was like one of the very first foundational books that I read, and I just felt like called to it. And one thing that really stuck out to me was the reminder that the origins of like of the elements, of the concepts of the four elements or multiple elements, were ancient Greeks, and the word for for the word of the element was actually the same word as their word for root. It wasn't like element as in we that way we conceive of an element as like a building
Mm.
block of something. Rather, it was a rhise or a root. I'm sure I don't speak Greek, let alone ancient Greek, so I'm probably not pronouncing that as well as it could be pronounced, but it was root. And I was like, well, okay, like when you do some kind of elemental meditation, whether it's like, feeling your earthly body or the like, the waters of your body or breathing exercises or energetic exercises like, right? Like the energy of your body. What are your nerves feeling or what are the energies around you? What is your body heat telling you? We are kind of like they do feel like roots, right? Like it's like you're almost like using sensation to tap into this aspect of your existence, of your being. And
Yeah.
I think that using scent or ritual or, actively engaging with spirits in the form of witchcraft is really particularly powerful because we are conceptualizing it within that realm of the witch of witchcraft. And
Mm.
as we are well aware, the church and patriarchal institutions have, for hundreds of years, demonized these practices,
Yeah.
relationships with the unseen, with beings that these patriarchal systems have deemed to be unholy because they live within the earth or because they're of darkness or decay or whatever. And we know that these are natural aspects of existence that without, that the seed needs darkness and decay just as much as it needs sunlight. And so
Yeah.
in really, tap into those powers in order to find resistance within ourselves and with each other. Like the earth will always devours the sun. Is she, this has been since time immemorial. And so like
Mm-hmm.
patriarchs always fall. Their bones will always become dust. Like what's that really cool saying that the earth is littered with the bones of empires that believe they were eternal? And so these are, people empires have risen and fallen, ideologies have been developed and been forgotten, kings and tyrants, like, we know some of their names, but for the most part, they're dust. And
Mm-hmm.
caused a lot of harm during the time that they existed, but life came into being, right? Like there's still people that are, beautiful and alive right now, and like that that life right now is what needs to be protected.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for also putting the frame around the work around element. I think water, fire, air,
Mm.
earth. I think it's important to understand where they're from. And I never read the book that you just show.
Oh, well, I'm definitely gonna bring it to you the next time you hang out.
Yes,
It's really good.
I
It's
never
really
read
short.
it.
It's like a little thin. Those of you that see a visual of this can see that
Mm-hmm.
it's not a thick book. Like it's
Yeah.
but it's just a really powerful
Yeah.
um little manual, especially if you're kind of like, wanting to kind of not go back to basics because it's not particularly basic. It's like that which the universe is constructed from, or
Mm-hmm.
manner with of engaging with those energies anyway. Um,
Yeah.
it's really, I think, helpful in a variety of ways, and it also includes
Yeah.
like a variety of correspondences. So if you work, with a lot of correspondences within your magic, like what planet or excuse me, what like stone is this element associated with, which herbs, which actually we'll talk about today, so you don't really need the book
Mm-hmm.
for that. If there like are particular like kabbalistic spirits or that are associated
Yeah.
with the elements or archangels, like if you work
Yeah.
with those beings.
Because I think like when we were talking about it, Mauricio and I, we just wanted when we say basic, like you said, it's not really basic,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's I think for our brain, how our brain works is easier to make sense of it and to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think with astrology, we have 12 signs. It can be very, even if you know astrology, it can be very overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where your sun and when your moon. And we wanted to make sure that we go back to the element because the element is how how do you express yourself? Even you, let's say we're going to talk about the fire element, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. You are at your core, on your heart, you're working with the element of fire. So even if you like maybe being more fixed, more manageable, more flexible, more fast to start, it's still coming from a place where your fuel is the fire. And so it's easier for the mind, the brain, this body connection that we want to do in your ritual to focus on one element because you know this element, you grow up with it, you understand it, you understand that it's burning, that it's powerful, that it can very create chaos, but at the same time create warmth. You understand that element because you grew up with it and it's very tangible in the world. So it's easier to connect with it in a way. And when we say chaos and basically how we can resist and fight back without burning out while protecting our boundaries, mental health and physical well-being is because 2025 in astrology is like 2020. Many astrologers was like, oh, 2020 it's going to be big. Like we didn't know it would be a pandemic. Maybe one or twice were like they did a prediction naming pandemic. So it was very smart with Pluto involved in those conjunction in 2020. And astrologers are saying the same right now in 2025. We are going through a new phase of civilization. There's a new path that is opening right now because there's so much change with planets that are more generational planets that have an impact more into the world and community in general. We talk about Pluto and Aquarius. We're going to talk about Saturn moving into Aries, Neptune just moving to Aries. We're going to talk about Uranus going into Gemini. We're going to talk about it in probably in the next few astrological episode. But with all of that, that create chaos because we're changing our foundation. We're changing the floor that where we stand up. So we wanted to make sure that you go back to the basic, the elements, air, earth, fire, and water, but also going back to the three that I call the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, because also again, astrology can be very well overwhelming, and everybody's like, "Oh, Pluto is important," but no, Uranus is important. But just deep breaths. And sometimes I just like, even as an astrologer, I'm like, go back to the three. Go back to the three. That's your triangle. That's where like your foundation is, how you express yourself and how you express yourself inside, outside, and with people around you. And so just to give you some keywords, and I would love to have your insight on how you see the sun, your ascendant, and moon. When we're going to talk about the element, look where your sun in what element your sun in. Where is your moon, what element of your moon is, and where your ascendant. And you're going to have a preferences. You're going to have preferences. It's just how your body works. It's depend of many different things in your chart. But we can tell you the sun is your life purpose, is how you are shining, how everything. We can tell you this, but you feel so much more close to the moon and where your moon is and the element that is it. But let's say your sun is in fire sign, your moon is in water. The fire sign you resonate, like you can feel like it's a little bit you, but you align so much more with your moon. Go with the element of water where your moon is, for example, and just dive into it. Just follow what your body is telling you is what you need right now.
Mhm.
Don't go to like, oh, but Mauricio, Camille, other astrologer, other people say this, and you have to follow your ascendant. No, no, you have to follow where your heart is leading you, where your body is leading you, is the element you need to listen to the most, and maybe the where your needs are. And that's what you have to listen. Always go back to you, your knowledge of yourself, no matter what we say.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. As a Taurus with the Taurus ascendant, listen to your body.
Oh yes, Taurus is there represented. So yeah, just to go back over the three, when you look at your chart, your sun is your life purpose, how and where you need to shine. The moon is going to represent your physical and emotional needs. So how you maintain your energy and how your well-being. And your ascendant is like your motivation of living. It's like the lens through like you see the world is like, and also sometimes people can see strongly your ascendant more than your sun or your moon. Usually the
Mhm.
moon is the part that is the most hiding of a part of ourselves. So people have not the tendency to see directly our moon. They will see the sun and mostly the ascendant. And that was my experience most of the time. I could see what your ascendant is depending on how you interact with me.
Yeah.
And when they talk about the emotion, and I was like, oh, I can see the moon. You know, I
Mhm.
can see when we're going to deep conversation, then I can see you. I'm not like, oh, your sun in blah, 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 and your moon is blah, blah. No, no, I can feel the element. I'm not that great at telling people what sign they are, moon, ascendant, or sun, but I can. And like, if you know a little bit of astrology, you can pick on that too. That's why
Mhm.
it's so good to work through the lens of element, because you're gonna feel more the element of what people are than like the sun or like the sign. Sorry,
Yeah,
you're gonna feel
absolutely.
more the element. Are you more earth? Are you more grounded? You make me feel more practical and strategic, or are you more like into the flow of life and ups and down, maybe more moody? And so you feel those people through the lens of element because there's a language that your body and your mind understand from
Mhm.
the beginning since you born because you interacted with it so much.
Yes, and like, they've been integral to like our evolution for forever, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
womb of the ocean, the womb of the earth, like the movements of the air, and I mean, as far as my conceptualization of them, I like to think of the sun as kind of like the energy that infuses your self, like your personality, your body, like when it came into being. Like we think about how plants and also people in a way like devour sunlight, eat, consume sunlight to turn it into other compounds that we use for our growth. For us it's just like vitamin D, but it's also high, really mood elevating, and nervous system balancing. Like being exposed to sunlight is pretty important. And people who, that's where seasonal affective disorder comes into play and that sort of thing. um,
Mm-hmm.
so like the flavor, I guess, or the scent of your particular sun or solar energy, can be really useful to focus on if you need like nourishment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like um, it was kind of weird, like a weird conversation that I was having with my sister before a call. Like we were talking about like how the sun is often kind of conceived of as like patriarchal, right? As like a kind of a male energy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then like my friend Cheryl was like, I don't know, because like everything's so like warm and nourishing. And I was like, well, it's like, older than
Mm.
our concepts of these things for sure. But then I was
Yeah.
like, wait, like, you hear these, sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but it came into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you hear like when you pass, you go into the light, and it's like, well, like it kind of makes sense that this solar energy is like deeply spiritual. It's the energy of life. And then there's this other aspect of earth that gives us our bodies and like absorbs us and allows us to contain this light energy that we always
Mm-hmm.
say we're light bodies, or people have light bodies, and et cetera, et cetera. My little roughshod theory. But that is all to say that if you look at like the placement of the sun when you were born, then you can get a feel for what that energy, feels like. As a Taurus, like the green, the growing earth is like very important to me, and being in it is very restorative. Whereas for the moon, she's so transitional, right? And very
Mm-hmm.
secretive, as you said. Like she reflects the light of the sun, but in phases. And so your emotional body is not, it may be more static with an earth element, but it's still going to like change and go through phases. And like paying attention to yourself, and what phase you are in of your
Mm-hmm.
emotional life, is really really helpful, because then you can engage with particular botanical spirits that support you, or make you feel a certain way. Or if say you're angry and activated, then you can channel that energy and take some action. And then
Mm-hmm.
as far as your ascendant, it to me is like kind of like the projection of like yourself into the world, like the field of yourself, the energetic self. And so like that's why I feel like people can kind of perceive that aspect of you a little more easily than the moon, which is kind of like, might be hidden by the earth, or it might be, eclipsing
Yeah.
the sun, or whatever, all these different
Mm-hmm.
movements. Um, and so the ascendant, it's really great to nourish your like ascendant self, or to like protect your ascendant self. Like maybe that is an anointing with a body oil that that is made with particular plants, oils that like whose scents are associated, or whose cell bodies are associated with a particular element. We can talk a little bit more about that. But there are, yeah, these different aspects are ultimately, part of the whole self, the way that like our digestive microbiome is a part of our whole self. Like these are different,
Mm-hmm.
that's a way of taking care of your physical earthly element, is like, paying attention to these signals that your body's sending you. And that I think is really, really, really important to not forget, right? Like we can't just exist in like the ethers and the vapors. Like as much as I love them, like
That would be amazing.
yeah,
Say yes to
like
this
life is a little
life.
different, I'm sure, but we, have earthly selves, and people around us, whether they're human people or non-human people with earthly selves, we can also help take care of and protect and such.
Mm, yeah. And like you mentioned how to take care of your guts and all that through food, and we're gonna talk about witchcraft in general with
Yes.
like a very like maybe focus on a little bit about your scent because that also
Mhm.
your specialty. And we also know, like I said, that the scent has a direct link to the brain, limbic
Yes.
system, which influences our emotion, our memory, and our mood, you know?
Yes, and our
So,
revolutionary theme is certainly, I feel, really powerfully um, tied to witchcraft. Like, I think
mm,
practicing it is a revolutionary act.
yeah.
Making it a part of your life is revolutionary and transformative. Like, you can't, there, you can go into a variety of philosophical debates with people about whether, the witch is a human, whether it's a more than human being or an other than human being. I think it really just depends on who you ask. But ultimately, like, there is this very consistent theme of, even in popular culture, of the witch being an enemy to the state, to the established order, to even patriarchal gods, like, the great gods of uh, the Olympian gods, the gods of ancient Greece, were deeply fearful of the gods of witchcraft. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was, a minor goddess like Circe or Medea, or a powerful goddess like Hecate,
Yeah.
or Diana or Nyx, like these were
Mm-hmm.
all goddesses that Zeus, the patriarch, feared, because what was their power? Their power was to return the spirits of the heavens into the earth, like to turn the cycles, to continue
Mm-hmm.
those cycles. So if, any one thing was holding on to that place or that space for too long, like, no, 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 it's time to move, it's time to decay, it's time for new things to come into being. And that is something that, as, practitioners of ritual, as people who pay attention to the changing of seasons, to the movement of the stars, like, things are always changing, things are always revolving, nothing
Mm-hmm.
static. And these oppressive forces really kind of trying to clamp down on us and life on this planet, their whole thing is pretending that something can be immortal or static or remain the same, or that we can keep doing things that like benefit, really small handful of people at the top. Again, hierarchies, chains of command. Like these are things that are, I think, need to be broken in, one way, shape, or form. Maybe it's, just the mental holds, or psychic or psychological holds that they have on us and the collective, but they
Mm-hmm.
are really, I think, important. And these ways of these engagements with aspects of ourselves are ways that we can, protect ourselves and resist and help, others.
Yeah. And just before we dive deep into the theme that we are talking about, resisting to the four element and going element by element, like your element is can be your power.
Mhm.
And so I just want to make sure that like we don't promote like fighting 100%. We just want to make sure that people have, like Mauricio said, like a care of their body. Like they understand when they need to retreat and recover or when they need to go for it, you
Mhm.
know? And I think that's
Yes.
the whole goal that we wanted to share with you.
Yes. And
Um,
I think that one of the most powerful things you can be is true to yourself and
mhm,
those aspects of yourself. And um there are, there were research on people that like, gave into fascism and fulfilled, fascist commands. And a really consistent theme amongst them was this like not they didn't have a sense of self. They didn't have an anchoring of like morals or morality within
mhm,
them. And I think that anyone probably listening to this deeply cares about life
yeah,
and the world and community and what's
mhm,
happening and are horrified by what we're witnessing, both in our, physical worlds and through a variety of, other means.
mhm,
So yes, I think that like nourishing yourself and by nourishing, I don't just mean like, like feeding yourself and taking naps and like that's do that if you need to, but also, people are struggling, to survive. People have to do a lot of like, really difficult work to, get by, to support themselves, to support their families. And sometimes it can be something that is like something it can be something that is like maybe a more symbolic gesture, and that is something that we can like kind of share with you in
mhm,
terms of like a fragrant element that can serve in that way. Because you don't people have a different variety of resources, and I think that like the elements is a powerful way. The roots of the elements, like you can't be cut off from those, really, right? Like we are of them. They surround
mhm,
us. We all
mhm,
have to drink water. We all need warmth.
mhm.
I know I was focusing on like the body, but like, we're all made of bodies. So it's, doesn't have to be a really, you don't have to go buy something or
Yeah.
eat rich, you do need to eat nourishing foods, but like, it's not about, we're not going to like be focusing on things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's talk about the first element.
The first
I'm
element.
excited about this one. Of course, I'm ascendant Aries, Sun in Sag, so of course I'm gonna be excited about this one. So our fire signs: Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. The theme for you is the warriors,
Hmm.
and I just want to start with the strength first, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So when we think of the fires, like elements and fire signs in general, they're like we think of the natural leaders. We think of passion, we think of courage,
Hmm.
and really the instinctive, like the power of the fire. It's the action,
Hmm.
going, be able to turn an idea as like into an action, and that is a strong power of the fire signs. And they excel really in direct activism, bold initiative, and really inspired other. Their role is to inspire other to go towards bravery, courage,
Hmm.
and the ability to push really forwards, even when it's a difficult circumstance and they don't
Yes.
have all the answers right there.
Mhm.
They won't be like the details one. They will be the one like, let's jump. Let's just jump. And
Right.
sometimes it can be tricky and
Hmm.
dangerous, but sometimes it can be needed
Hmm.
to just jump.
Absolutely.
And this is that makes them powerful for the war. Like we need that kind of fire in our time right now, as
Yes, absolutely.
especially when you have Saturn and Neptune going into Aries. It's those are like those are major generational shifts that we're
Mhm.
gonna feel no matter, even if you're not a fire sign, you're gonna feel that shift, that hunger for for jumping into activism or like fighting for a cause. There's gonna be that jump. Yes, I think definitely the fire is like for me the passion of.
Yes, absolutely. The fire signs. I have very little fire in my chart, so from my perspective, fire's element just also is like the guiding light, like very frequently. There, we've talked about kind of like the maturity of like the element through the signs, right? Like the fire, the Aries is the beginning. Leo is this more like noon tide energy, and then Sagittarius is like the blazing comet in the evening sky, right? Like these really
Mm-hmm.
powerful types of fire. And I think that maybe if you're, have a fire element in your big three and you feel drawn to activate it, but maybe there are other aspects of yourself that make you kind of shy or maybe make you physically unable, make it so that you're or maybe there are physical circumstances, that's what I should say, that make it so that you can't like be out in a protest or something, but you have ideas to share, then this the fire energy would say that you like need to share them, that they're
Mm-hmm.
shared, because you don't know who they might inspire. Like the spark may jump from, your crackling, flaming heart and ignite someone else. And, who knows what will be born of that. Um, for fire, I also, I work in local ecology, and one of the things that people are really pushing for is the reintroduction of controlled burns here in California. And so
Mm.
we know that indigenous people very successfully implemented controlled burns in a variety of different bioregions, and they still do so now.
Mm-hmm.
And that those regions were, and are very biodiverse. And
Mm-hmm.
they're really beautiful and really healthy, and the soil's really healthy, and the plants here evolved to be exposed to fire. There are certain types of seeds that need to be exposed to fire in order to germinate. And
Mm-hmm.
so like fire is really important, and clearing out old things, sparking new things is very, I think, potent energy at this time.
Yeah.
And
I like that
yeah.
you give the example, like a tangible example with the fire
Hmm.
element for trees for the regeneration.
Fine.
Yeah, yeah. For kind of a reactivation of the
Yes.
biodiversity is like kind of a huge
Nourishing in a way.
reset.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
like.
And so, like, well, how do we spark new inspirations in ourselves? Maybe if we're feeling a little like, not sure. Well, here's tip number one. I would say actually the origin of perfume itself, incense, the lighting
Mm-hmm.
of aromatics, the introduction of them to flame, is really, really powerful way of not only, engaging fire in a spiritual, the element of fire in a spiritual, energetic, magical way, but also the smoke is nourishing to yourself, to your spirits, to the spirits that you may be working with. And the idea has been or we've had this construct, or this concept of spirits of smoke that are in the shapes of serpents carrying our prayers into the heavens. And this is something that you can find in ancient Mexico. This is something you can find in the eastern parts of the world. Like these are in the relationship between human beings and smoke and spirits, and spirits and smoke and humans is as old as we can,
It's like a yeah.
super ancient. And so this, that could be lighting an incense.
Mm-hmm.
Could be, like maybe your apartment doesn't like allow you to like light incense, but you can find little incense matches sometimes at like liquor stores or at local gift shops, and you light this match, and it's the paper part of it that you would blow out, that you would normally toss, is incense, and
Mm.
burn through, and you can like do it outside or like at a park in a safe way without like causing fire or having a fire hazard. But just this engagement with transforming a physical thing in using fire, and then paying attention to how your inner self, you know,
Mm-hmm.
responds to these materials, these elements, these spirits, can be really meditative and, nourishing or activating, depending on the
Yeah.
scent that you choose. So really warm solar scents like cinnamon, or citruses, like, even citruses look like the sun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or chamomile, like we think, chamomile is very airy, but it's also like a little solar flower. um
Yeah.
so
And I find that chamomile is one of the plants that I use the most as
oh,
a
great.
tea. Really simple plant to like because sometimes people go to the hardcore like valerian roots
Yes.
like to go to sleep or calm them down
Yeah.
or kava kava, I do think it's necessary for some body type. Yes, you might need the kava kava, the strong
Mhm.
thing. But like kava kava, for example, I call it kava kava, but it's kava.
Mhm.
Like you also have to work with the plants that you have around you. Kava kava is from Polynesia.
That's
All
true
that
also, right?
region
Yeah.
is used
Mhm.
traditionally for ritual
Mhm.
healing purposes. So we don't have it in abundance. And so knowing that in the plant world is always good to go back to plants that is around you. First of all,
Absolutely.
yeah, because they're gonna have
Absolutely.
an impact. They breathe the same air. They're in the same
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Mhm.
They are here and they're in abundance. So they are being
Yeah,
called to
they're
be
surviving,
used.
right? They're not only surviving, but they're abundant. And I
Yeah,
think, this is where we can actually talk a little bit about the like energetics of plants and whether, aromatic plants or medicinal plants. Like
yeah,
kava is in its way fair, like kind of watery and saturnal, right? Like it's
yeah.
very like you take too much, like you're like out, right?
You're
Like
gone.
bye-bye. Yeah, so like whereas chamomile is traditionally is associated with like in terms of a zodiac Aquarius, but
Mhm.
energetically it's very solar, also kind of watery and airy. But it's warming, right? It's comforting, it's soothing. It helps calm the nervous system by comforting it, by wrapping you in a like cozy sense of coziness. It
Mhm.
is like kind of like a cool green fire for soothing digestion. It is
Oh
also
yeah,
antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory.
yeah,
So it's a really, a very good example of a very balanced
yeah,
botanical that we have a relationship with.
yeah.
And you can also, make a sachet, like maybe, no, wait, no, that's getting into the earth element. We're talking into the fire.
We're
Hot
staying into
tea.
the
Well, I
fire.
also wanted to talk about heat, right? So
Yeah,
into the fire element. So a hot tea is a great way of interacting with something with a botanical that involves heat, that involves fire. Maybe
yeah.
it's using cinnamon or some kind of like an evergreen tree. Like
Mm-hmm.
evergreens are
Rosemary.
very, earthly and also very airy, but the essential oils that they're made out of are really similar to those of like rosemary and thyme. And so they're very fiery, they're very activating, they're antimicrobial. Uh,
Yeah.
so they're, kind of warrior molecules. They're warrior
Mm-hmm.
compounds that plants produce to protect themselves and to fight
Yeah.
infections. And we can, activate them with something that also kind of warms the body. I know a decoction and infusion is, very watery,
Mm-hmm.
but just working with heat in a way that um, wakens the body, like that can also be the form of like maybe there's a muscle rub that like, if you're really anxious, really activated as a fire element, then you may have a lot of like tension or inflammation in your body. And using balms that can help relieve tension that are warming, or maybe the fire is overactivated and you need cooling. That's
Yeah.
also, I think, something to really pay attention to. Like we're talking about supporting and nourishing the elements, but sometimes some things need to be counterbalanced, right, with something
Yeah.
cool or watery. So I think that also is probably appropriate most to speak on for fire, since fire can, even I spoke of, controlled burns, like that could get out of control and it could be disastrous. So
Yeah.
like counterbalancing the elements, I think is also something we can, just touch on in this moment.
But that's perfect when you talk about it, is because it reminds me that, like any sign, anything, you have a bright side and a shadow
Yeah,
side.
absolutely, for sure.
So we talked about,
The
mhm.
strengths.
And yeah, and we talked about the bright side of like being the leader, boldness, courage, give, an example of bravery. But there's also a shadow side to the fire element, and it can be very struggling with burnout because they're like going so full on, like 100%, that in the long run, it can feel like very exhausted for their body, their mind, their spirits. And they become impulsive, they become
Hmm.
impatient. The urge to act quickly can sometimes lead to exhaustion
Yeah.
and reckless decision. It's and they it's a cycle. It's a bad circle because even if they're exhausted and do really quick decisions that are not very good, they stay in it because it's so hard for them to pose or to recharge
Yeah.
because the body because when you go to the shadow side of the fire element, your body has too much heat inside and needs
Mm.
to steam it out.
Ah.
And the basically the mantra, the rule is like it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so having this for fire, like this, like in their mind for fire signs is so it's so important to remember,
Yeah.
okay, I know I want to spring into this, but I know it's a marathon. I know it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And I need to use my energy very smartly and like being little by little instead of giving everything in 100%
Yeah.
because I know I'm
Well,
going to burn out.
that's like a really interesting way of like thinking like from the very beginning or when you start to feel as though you might be becoming overwhelmed. It's like
Hmm.
how do you okay, so like say you are like you ignited the spark of, early fire energy and then you've become something that's like kind of self-sustaining the way that a sun is.
Hmm.
How can you become something that can continue to like move and move across its own path in the heavens the way that like a comet or some such other celestial body would, that
Yeah.
is like that can be a that is guidance for yourself but also
Hmm.
potentially also guidance for others.
Yeah.
um, because keeping, yeah, like I think that using maybe some scent or warmth oriented ritual to restore fire could be very powerful if you're feeling burnt out. Like how
Yeah.
what nourishes you, what feel makes you feel inspired and activated and energized,
Yeah.
or what is draining your fire too much.
Draining. And like basically age will teach you more of that. There's a part of it that when you're young, you're gonna test out different things. You're gonna fail, you're gonna
Yeah.
burn out. That's part of life. But I think the most important is to learn yourself. Just keep track of where you burn out. After a certain age, if you go that way, you know what's gonna happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
you know more yourself, you know your body. And just for those like specifically who have an ascendant in fire, moving your body, but
Mm.
not just doing yoga or very like quiet or like slow moving, like walking and stuff. Yes. But what I notice for people who have an ascendant in fire, they need to have a heat training. They need to do cardio, like spring. Like they need to, for a short period of time, even if it's 7 minutes, 8 minutes, do intense work for their muscle because their body is craving that intensity and that sweat. That sweat is needed. And then again, even if it's very short, it's 5 minutes of like whatever hit, jumping, jack, whatever you're doing. Then there's like more quiet, like walking, running a little bit. That is fine. But I noticed that your body, when you're gonna start doing that type of work, your body is gonna crave it more and more. And that's just how we evacuate
Mm-hmm.
is toxic. It's
Yeah.
toxicity from the body. It's been evacuated through steam and like you
Yes,
sweat.
that's a
You're
perfect
sweating.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dancing, very good. Dancing, move your body. Like fire sign, like when you feel like you need to rebalance, move your body because fire sign needs the body is so important to it's such a strong element, the fire. It's so hard to content inside the body that it need to be expressed outside. And so
Yeah.
dancing, moving, running, like all of that, so therapeutic for people who have a fire element strongly in their chart. And we wanted to link it before going to the next one on the earth sign. You're coming next. But before going through the earth sign, I wanted to link it, Mauricio and I, to the mythology and
Oh.
have
Mhm.
and have kind of a figure of what we think is the closest to the fire element in that context, activism and without burning out, being strategic about how you can keep fighting with consistency instead of like going full steam and being burnout and very, in an intense way.
Mhm.
So we thought of Athena is the Greek goddess of wisdom and strategy. she basically was born fully grown and armored, like she already have a armored on, how you say it, armored, I don't know.
Armored, yeah,
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 on her, like from the head of Zeus,
yeah.
and so really that origin you can feel like from the head of Zeus is origin that symbolizes fierce intellect and divine strategy. So she was not just a goddess of war, she was also a protector of city, builder of systems. She guided heroes too. But unlike other gods of chaotic battle like Ares, just Athena was representing like calculated resistance. She was very strategic on how she used her energy into war. So that kind of like thoughtful, planned. It was very rooted in justice and how to be fair into the battle. And so in the context of the fire sign, to really remind us the courage doesn't always mean charging forwards, but it also means choosing your battle wisely and
Hmm.
using your fire with purpose. So when
Hmm.
we say mean choosing your battle wisely, it's not to fight in every corner you find, but be able to say, okay, I can manage this because I know I need to do this to recharge.
Hmm.
So I thought it was a very a mythological figure that will really much like be a good representation of fire elements and fire signs.
Yes, I love this the focusing in on um sorry. I'm like the clap, so you know what this is, just because like I started to have all these like thoughts about Athena and Medusa, and I'm like, no, 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 this is
Oh yeah, trust me.
uh,
When I find a Tina that it was more, I was like, you have to separate the Athena part, because but it's
well,
hard. It's hard.
it is.
It's
I
hard.
mean, maybe you'll leave this in or not, but there are, scholars that actually trace Athena's origin to Medusa and Medusa's origin.
The link.
So she's, yeah, so like protectress of the threshold, like very powerful warrior goddess, like, like the so like uh Athena was potentially a Scythian goddess, and the Scythians were the like where the centaurs come from. Like they were like these like armed horseback warriors that even the Greeks were really afraid of, and then they like learned like saddle and bridle technologies from them, and that is like very
Mm-hmm.
much like Athenian energy, right? Like this strategic wielding of a force, like a horse or or a blade or
Mm-hmm.
what have you, like you're saying. um and so yes, I actually like the power of the protectress and the origin as protectress
Yes.
is a
But
really
it's
big
also
deal
when I
right
read
now.
it, I was like, how to do it in the context of the story of Medusa, because it's so important,
Yeah, and I
to
mean, I think
Medusa's story and how she was blamed and like she was the woman was blamed, which is so aligned to our society
yes, I mean, it was,
and the
her.
patriarchal.
She was, they were taking her as like a foreign spirit and fitting her into their patriarchal world. And so I
Exactly.
think that
She
it's
is part
very
of it.
powerful to see, to see like how Medusa became, well, I wasn't really sure if we are going to talk about this, but maybe fire is the time, and then going into earth, a monstrousness, like
Mm,
that's like, the monster is very frequently perceived of by humans as the enemy of societies, of established order, but the monster is very frequently inflicted upon humanity by the planet, by the gods, by you know um a transgression of humanity. And so it's like, well, what are, hurricanes and fires and all this crazy shit that's going down, if not,
mm,
Titanic, children of
yes.
the earth, mother. But that's a whole other podcast. But there is also power in accepting your own monstrousness, like,
Yeah.
like you not to flip Athena on her head and be like, don't, strategy and direction and being a lightning bolt or an arrow certainly is more useful and less destructive than being a wildfire. But
Hmm.
sometimes, that roar, the release of the rage, the, good rage, like honorable rage on behalf of innocence or harm being inflicted for evil reasons, like, that fire is necessary. Like, if we don't have that, then we
Mm-hmm.
just become apathetic and let whatever
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
So I think actually this ended up being a really cool little element of our
Boo! I love it.
yeah. Like, honestly, it's like, there how do we, yeah, how do we use these mythological archetypes and find them within ourselves or engage them as spirits if we're so inclined? Like, these are powerful stories that we see
Yeah.
happening in real time too. They're not just like these things from the past. Like, they were
Yeah.
archetypal tales for a reason.
Yeah. But that was necessary. I love that you brought up Medusa because I've been struggling with that part too. But I feel
Yeah.
like Athena was so good into that. But, that was the
Well, yeah,
Medusa
I
thing.
mean, yeah, and it's kind of like, how were they themselves, even
Yeah.
as goddesses, warped by patriarchy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So true. Let's go, my Earth sign
Yes,
friends.
it's time for
It's
the
your
Earth.
turn. Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. I name them the builders
Oh,
because they are the builders. Literally, when I think of Earth sign, they really provide like stability. They really provide persistence and long-term strategy. And they are the one, for me, they are the one that create sustainable movement
mm,
that don't fade away.
mm-hmm,
They are ensuring the resistant longevity, the effort, how they're structured, organized, and well planned. That's for me the power of Earth, the power is the element of Earth. And the patience and endurance. When I talk about patience and endurance, because during a war, I use extreme word war,
mm-hmm,
that you're gonna fail at some battles,
mm-hmm,
and that can take over like your whole agency, your whole power of hoping to win.
mm-hmm.
And earth element have this power there of automatically thinking like this is a battle, not the war. This is
Yes.
part of the plan. I can move past it. We're gonna win other battle.
Yeah, and we kind of think of Earth as like being this, like, well, just for the, like, to to uh positively reinforce what you're saying, the, like, the bones of something, the, like, structure
Mm-hmm.
of something, whether it's like, an organizational structure, an outline, a molecular structure, like, all of these things are essential for anything to, like, be. Bone
Mm-hmm.
foundations, like, these are essential for them to be. And we kind of think of, like, a mountain that, like, cracks, or a foundation that cracks, or a tree that cracks as, like, being done with, but it's actually never really that case, right? Like, it's actually just become a new type of foundation. Like, a tree especially grows, will continue
Mm-hmm.
to grow, will grow from its stems, will its children will grow from its roots. And so, like, I think that is like what you're saying, like, the earth element is a reminder that things regenerate, that
Mm-hmm.
very rarely is an end truly final. And that there sometimes, something is cut back doesn't mean that it's completely gone. Like, there are how many plants don't we know that will completely sprout again from roots?
Mm-hmm.
They can be cut back and they'll grow back. And so that also is very, earth there. Um, this consistency, a sense of persistence that
Mm-hmm.
isn't just like, I mean, it is emotionally driven, it is inspirationally driven, it is mentally driven, so informed by the other elements, but it is, a sense that, we've been here before, we're here now, we'll continue to be in one way or another. And so, like, it's like, we'll get through this and we can continue to build from moments or efforts or
Yeah.
things that we learn or things that we do.
Yeah. And when I think about the ritual for sign that are sign that are earth, like earthy sign,
Mm-hmm.
Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. I'm just thinking of ritual that like enhance the feeling of groundness and the feeling that they are connected to nature. Like when I talk to different earth sign, the need to connect to nature on a daily basis is real.
Yes.
Even yes, even if we think of like Capricorn, which usually, like when you read about it, is very attached in
Hmm.
weird way with corporation, being leaders, like, like climbing, like, yes, okay, there is a part of it with Capricorn, but his foundation needs to be rooted in nature.
Hmm.
Or it will have a hard time to connect to whatever it's trying to build.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it can be as simple as working in nature, meditation, and all that. But when I think about our five senses, touching, breathing, everything that is like related to our five senses, I think the earth signs connect with the spirit world through the five senses.
Hmm. Yes.
And that their magical power is they know and they can feel the energy of the earth and the element that living and every element that living on earth. Like it can be through crystal, through essence, through a plant, flower. There's that power in earth signs. And because it's cycle, it's consistency, it takes time to move. It's not as, the cycle of life is in time and that they
Hmm.
feel in tune to that. But like gardening, is like the big one. Like for
Yes.
a lot of people find their peace. It's not for every earth sign, but they find their peace in garden. There is a kind of like when they garden, they channel.
Hmm.
That's power of channeling there.
Yeah.
When they create something with like with their hand, like we're talking about Virgo right now, but like
Yes.
with different elements in plant, like it can be a warm tea, it can be like making tinctures, like
Or
cooking.
art.
Oh, arts,
Cooking for
like
sure, like definitely food. Like food is huge for Earth, but creating in general, I think I'm glad that you brought that up because I feel like creating something, and it can be like creating a conceptual thing like an organization or like a food pantry or something if you feel, if
hmm
you feel like you need to do something that is going to like have an impact.
hmm
Gardening certainly has an impact, especially if you're focusing on pollinator plants, native plants that support native species in the local ecosystem in your bioregion. Like that is like very powerfully, like I would say, this is me being a conservationist earth sign Taurus that absolutely needs to be helping plants live in order to not lose their mind in the
yeah,
world these days. Like yes, it's like okay, like I see a little bee inside, collecting the pollen from a poppy that I put in a seed box, or, a little verbena that I have growing, like collecting nectar from there, or a hummingbird like drinking from a rose or from a type of mint. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was like one little being that got a snack or got some food, like, and our whole world is very much not made to like provide them with food or to provide them with shelter. And so like reshaping, that's all to say, like reshaping your world can also be very powerfully earth energy.
yeah,
And to speak on ritual, um like maybe even organize the organization of the ritual is very like Virgo, and honestly it's probably really all just like earth, like the use of physical objects that in which spirits can embody, the use of physical candles, of a bowl in which you will pour the element of water to nourish the spirits, the candle wax and the wick that the flame needs in order to exist, like that's all earth element. And so, how can you, maybe something as simply as like taking into consideration the sacredness of the vessel, like when you cook your food or when you have it in a bowl or when you pour something into a cup or a tea into a mug, that can be a very simple earthly ritual.
yeah,
Or it can be, like Karima, when we were talking about this, you mentioned like sigils. That's also very powerful. It is bringing like the conceptual, the spiritual into the physical space with like a
yeah,
symbol.
hmm
And like this is like really does engage kind of like all of the elements as well and puts them into a physical thing, a physical container
yeah,
in the form of the sigil, talking about vessels. The we need light in order to see the sigil. That's like the
yeah,
fire element. We thought of it, imagined it, conceptualized it in the imaginal realm. That's the air. We had to like channel our emotions, our energy. It's magic. We into it. That's, that flow is water. So it's a very powerful. I think that I really liked your suggestion of that.
Yeah.
I thought that was
I,
very
I I
powerful.
actually love sigil. So like for people out there, like for example, I know I'm a fire sign. I don't have earth in me that much. So I'm craving it, you know,
Mm.
because it gave me this quest and this goal of consistency and being connected to nature. And so even if you think I'm not going to listen to earth sign because I'm not an earth sign, I use practical that earth sign will use to consolidate their power, means to call on into this power. So I
Mm.
use sigil. I never used to work with sigil. But like you mentioned it's because on a physical, it's drawing, it feel like a creative
Mhm.
aspect of it. And then you can see it. You can look at it. And it's just like, for me, it's calling into that power and do a little prayer. Oh, to use prayer, which is using my voice, is again
Mhm.
very a sense that we have.
Mhm.
And using this to put in grave, like really my intention, it's necessary,
Yes.
And sigil for me, I never used to work with it. I was not a big, big fan, but now I'm craving it because I'm craving earthy,
That's amazing. Awesome.
ritual.
That's super cool.
Mm.
And if you're, curious about how to introduce scent into this, like I feel like, food, as I mentioned, is really powerful for earth signs. Like that's already very like gustatory, olfactory, like, you're smelling the spices, you're smelling the herbs, you're engaging with your senses in order to create something that's going to nourish you, which is very earth elemental. But like what herbs and what plants and botanical spirits lend themselves to the work of earth? Well, really earthy scents. So like woody scents like cedar woods and spruce woods, but also patchoulis, which is actually a leaf, even though it's a woody note, and it's very earthy. And depending on the quality of the patchouli you can get like a really dark aged patchouli. You can get a fresh, lighter, greener patchouli. And actually, the same thing with vetiver, which is itself a root, a very powerful root that actually helps not only maintain soil health in like the land in which it grows, but also helps prevent erosion. So vetiver has been used in Hawaii. It's been cultivated to prevent cliffs from eroding into the ocean, and it's been fairly successful. So this is like an aromatic plant. We're not going to distill it into an essential oil, but it's still an aromatic plant that is doing very powerful, potent, foundational, like literally holding the earth together work. And so it's like, how can these plants help nourish us? Well, their olfactory profiles are very grounding. They help kind of calm the body, they help put you into your body, they help your body feel rooted to the earth. They're also very nourishing and soothing to the central nervous system. Woods and earthy essential oils and scents in general also tend to be very, very complex. They're made out of very complex molecular structures, not just like, the terpenes that some people might know from aromatherapy or from cannabis, like linalool and limonene and linalool acetate, that are very aromatic and evaporate really quickly. Those are like monoterpenoid compounds. Sesquiterpenoid compounds are very complex, and like we don't really understand all of their qualities, but they can be like anti-allergenic. They can potentially be antidepressant, like very, very complex actions on the body, which makes sense for an earthly earthly oil, right? Um, but you can either like anoint yourself with these scents. You can anoint your sigil. Like I think it would be very or not I think
Oh.
it is a very powerful practice to, with a little paintbrush or something, very intentionally, or even a toothpick, draw or anoint your sigil with a scented oil that is in alignment with the energies that you're working with.
Mm.
Similarly, anointing a candle, like lighting a fragrant candle, is powerfully fire, but the act of transmogrifying, transforming, transmuting the physical body of the candle with anointment is very earth, is very much an earth element thing. And if it can be done with a candle, then it can be done with your own body and self as well.
That's so interesting. I never put sense into my schedule, but now I'm excited
Yeah,
about
now ooh, it's time
it.
to boost them.
Yeah. And all those ritual is to really connect to, like I said, the earth element of,
Mhm.
and part of that can be your sun, your moon, or your rising. However, when there is like, again, we're going to talk about the shadow side, we
Yes.
talk about the
We
bright
can't
side,
scare it,
but
absolutely.
yeah, it's like when you feel like that you like stuck, like that the sense of what the earth element like of over overcharge of earth element is usually like overworking. You can
Mhm.
compensate it like something by overworking, overdoing, and exhausting yourself.
Yep.
Sometimes it can be through perfectionism, um, being able like sometimes perfectionists can be overworking or
Mhm.
never start something because it's never perfect enough. That
Mhm.
can go two ways. That can be also like a having a hard time to change is very slow. It can be hard and like it's keeping us from progressing really.
Mhm.
So this feeling of stuck, weighed down with responsibility, sometimes or afraid too much to take risk, that's an overload of the earth element
Yeah.
in you.
Mhm.
And so you have to, for me, like what I like to do is to call on air to move things around
Huh.
or to call on water
Mhm.
because I do more water because the earth and water are elements that fit really well together, like fire and air. You
Mhm.
know, fire feed the air, air feed fire, earth feed the water feed the earth. And so I feel like there's something there that if you want to work with that combination can be very helpful.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And so I was like definitely using the element of air like sense to you know to move things around and or using water. I liked using
Mm.
blessing water that I bless myself. Like I
So
just have to
beautiful.
put my hand on it, you know, and you do a prayer. We know by now, since the study of many different scholars and scientists, that air is definitely air. What am I saying? Water is definitely influenced by the environment that is in.
Mhm.
So if you're going to do a prayer, if you're going to say you love what you're drinking, whatever, it's going to create particles that are very good for your body.
Cool.
And we can literally see it when you froze the water. You know, you can see they were doing two experiments. They've been done now many, many
Yeah.
times.
Mhm.
It's like the flower experiment. Like you say to one cup of water, whatever, I hate you, like saying very hardcore word, and another word like a good prayer, bringing joy, pleasure, abundance, whatever you want to do it. And then you froze them, and then you can see the shape of the frozen water is very crooked, very hard in the glasses of, I mean, the water, like the, what am I saying? One, two,
They're
three.
like
The water when
molecules, the frozen
you
molecules.
exactly. And the water when you get a good prayer, calling on peace, calling on abundance, or calling on health, you can see the shape. It's
That's so
very
cool.
nice. It looks like a star. And so you can even do it on your own, that experiment. But that's really call on the fact that water is spirit. It's smart, and like all the vibration that you have will influence the water, you know. And so using water to just move maybe the overstimulate heart, like overstimulated mind of like doing everything perfectly or overworking or having hard
Mhm.
time to move, having hard time to get out of a situation because you're
Yep.
so much in it.
Mhm.
Using the element of water to flush away. It can be in your shower and having a prayer, you know, to flush away, using
Absolutely.
salt,
Oh
using
yeah.
scents. Like that's like really flush away all your body and you like just move the energy that is stuck in your body. Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
You like it? You like that one?
I love it. Yes, water magic.
Yeah, I really enjoy working. I think water is maybe like one of the most powerful elements that I work with, to be
Yes.
honest. Is
Well, we
like
wouldn't be here without it. And like if you think about,
exactly.
like the impact of energy, like, being yelled at on like a glass of water, like we are 80% water, right? Like our cell,
Exactly. And
every
so I
we're
just
so
feel
much
this,
water.
especially for those who have the moon in earth sign.
Yep.
Mm.
Hmm.
And when I linked it to a mythology, historical, goddess. It was clear for me that it was like I was linking it to Vesta,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the goddess of earth, home, and sacred fire that burned at
Yeah.
the center of Rome.
Yes.
And people sometimes like use it like put it as a fire element, but for me, because she's consistent, because she keep the flame without interruption, because if the fire was ever going out, that was a sign of a bad omen.
Yeah. Well, it's
So
kind of like if you think about how, like, if our core, the Earth's core, like went cool or something, like we that would be catastrophic.
yeah,
Me, that's like the origin of that Vesta energy is like the earth, the hearth that contains and keeps safe that sacred fire. Like it's the
yeah.
sacred fire itself, but like without this protection, without this safe vessel container, then like
Hmm.
it wouldn't be able to burn. It
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the sacred continuity,
yes. Hmm.
the quiet, the steady work of keeping
Yes.
something alive. It's like, so
Hmm.
for Earth sign, I just thought it reminded me like the resistance that is often slow and steady,
Yeah.
you know, and it is a care of land, in the maintenance of tradition, in the patience of tending of what must last, that we
Hmm.
saw the earth element being at the brightest. And her magic is really on of ritual and devotion and responsibility. So it
Yes.
just it was really like a mirror of earth signs.
Beautiful. I like it.
Yeah, it was. As this one, I like it. I really would like really resonate with that a lot for earth signs. Okay, so now let's go with our air
Let's go to
signs. My
air.
Geminis, my Libras, my Aquarius. I call them the visionaries. They are the visionaries. They are a medium, our oracle people.
Yes, truly, truly. They're definitely downloading and seeing the patterns and like,
Yeah,
hearing the whispers, whether they're really loud or very quiet, like the air
yeah.
carries all.
That I feel like they can definitely like when I think of channeling through the mind, I think of their air signs because
Hmm.
they can be very intellectual.
Yeah.
There's this communicators and
Well, everything
strategy.
travels through the air. Well, not everything, but most things.
Yeah, there's strategies of resistance. There's like the analytical part. I just really enjoy talking with any air sign and how they're able to, because air is moving so
Hmm.
fast. It's a fast element. It moves very fast. And so I feel like the capacity to link different topic, different subject, and the interest in different field make them like very knowledgeable in many different aspects of life, because the interest can be very it can be multiple different interests. And they're
Hmm.
able to jump from different subject, and you can talk with them about many different things, you
Yeah.
know and
Hmm.
they're able to be the devil advocate. They are able to see that is one of the signs, the earth sign, that are able to see the opposite, like
Hmm.
the
The other side,
argumentation,
or
the
the
ideas.
multiple facets or aspects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is their strength. That is part of the shadows, because
Hmm.
unfortunately they can't see both sides. They can be in the,
Yep. It
you
can be
know,
someone with a lot of multiple air placements, mostly
mm-hmm.
Gemini, and then my Mars is in Aquarius. Yeah, that's
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
definitely a thing, like the overwhelm of too many options or too much information, or just being like, well, like, I'm not really on not anybody's side, but like, in a particular discussion, you might end up being like the more revolutionary third, right? Like, we have there's, this kind of dance between very right-wing forces and more centrist forces, and
Mm,
demonization on the left, of the left by these mainstream powers. And it's kind of like some that I think is very airy, obviously very Aquarian, like,
yeah.
that knowledge that, like, no, actually, what you both are saying is not the full picture. So it's like not just two sides, it's often
Mm-hmm.
multiple sides, as we
It's
know.
not black and white, it's
We
gray.
live in like complex society that's very air as well. And so finding ways to either not so much filter, but like kind of focus, energy can be really important. Or you know, preventing overload and anxiety and all, with either practices or habits, could be really helpful and important.
Yeah. They they also have, I think like they have this ability to spread awareness, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, well, yeah, the chatty Cathys of the zodiac.
Like they can very much like spread a knowledge. You know, when we say like you need to repeat things to
Mm-hmm.
comprehend, to
Mm-hmm.
memorize it, that's gonna be your friend who's gonna repeat you things and like
Yes,
until you like, have it in your
you get
brain.
it. Yeah.
And they understand that. They have this ability to quick think. Oh my God. Quick thinking. I'm gonna do
Yes.
it. That
Yes.
that
And
you
their
know
ability
that
to use words.
This is you see like I'm having struggle like when I talk about the air sign communication. Um
Well, I mean, it's music is even like, ruled by air, and that's
oh
like,
yeah.
the harmony and the rhythm comes from repetition. The like, growth can come from repetition, and that is very, very an air element
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like maybe finding plants that and aromatics that support mental clarity so that you don't get mentally exhausted from all the talking and all the thinking and all the sharing and all of the doing. So like um sharp, cooling, refreshing herbs are very helpful. And if you are working with essential oils or scents, like peppermint is really great. Lavender is a very interesting botanical because it's both
Yeah.
air and earth.
Mm.
And so it's certainly very like emotionally and mentally soothing, and kind of clarifying, but it's also um, like physically calming to the central nervous system and physically antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. So lavender is ruled by Mercury and expresses the mercurial aspects of Gemini with its like more bright crystalline qualities, and then also the qualities of Virgo with its healing and physical properties. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so like
I
that
love
actually has like,
lavender for
yeah,
air
lavender's
signs.
awesome. Like she's so powerful and like, the mother of aromatherapy, she's called that for a reason. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but these herbs that I mentioned, like eucalyptus is also a great one, and eucalyptus grows, pretty invasively in quite a few different regions of the world, but especially a lot here in California and the Bay Area. So like maybe harvesting fragrant eucalyptus for like your showers or a bath, or burning could be like, very useful, but also a sustainable way of engaging with plants that grow in your local landscape. um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also though antimicrobial and cleansing too, like sweeping, like maybe using making a broom from like
Mm-hmm.
herbs, or using branches from something to like sweep. Like sweeping is a very air
Yeah.
topic as well, and
Yeah.
cleansing through sweeping.
Cleansing even on your body.
Yeah, I think so, right?
When you create, you can cut some rosemary,
Yeah, for
whatever,
sure.
do a bundle, put some
Hmm.
lavender, doing a little bundle, and after you shower, you brush away with a prayer like all the energy that's stuck.
Yeah.
Because the shadow side of the air sign is mostly due to anxiety and
Hmm.
a mental overload.
Yes.
So, and that can be creating a detachment from the emotion and what they feel because they try to contextualize everything,
Yes, it's the
because
survival
this
mode thing for
it's
sure.
exactly. And so constantly absorbing new information, it can lead to stress and difficulty in grounding the energy. So with the bundle of like rosemary, lavender, you can put whatever you've been called to add into this bundle. Like when you brush yourself, like your body, your heart chakra, your head, like you kind of reconnect to the earth element, and so the
Hmm.
grounding that you need
Yeah,
to
that's very true.
balance that this overload of mental energy and just even sweep your feet under it, like to
Hmm.
just, you know, let go. And like I think breath working is so good because for air sign that call them to go back to their body. And it doesn't have to be like a crazy breath work. It can be just for 5 minutes focusing on your breath
It
when
could
you
even just be
meditate.
sighing. Like, have you ever just like, I have this, like, just sighed? Like, that's a massive release actually of stress and
Mm-hmm.
tension in the body.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have time to sit there and count your breaths, like maybe you just need to like sigh it out, just let it go.
Yeah, just
Let
no,
it go
that's
with that breath.
yeah. And it
Or
feels
scream, I guess.
yeah,
Maybe you
because the
should scream.
breath forces you to go back to your body and stop being in
Mhm.
the mind. So
Yeah.
it's just great for and I love when I'm because we all have air sign in our chart. So when I have this overload of mental energy, for me, I'm talking about only me, but what helped me is to practice meditation that like visualizing meditation when I
Hmm.
like
Oh, yes.
realize that I have roots that go to the ground and that anchor me and that just bringing back basically to the present moment. It's all about the
Yeah.
present moment where our
Isn't that
sign is like,
interesting how like something, because visualization is very air element,
yeah,
imagining is very air element, but at the same time, it can be used in such a powerful way to connect
yeah,
to ground. Um, it's
yes,
just, it's like, it's
yes.
very, they're all so interwoven. And that's why I think I really love the idea of them, instead of being like building blocks, that they're roots, that they're
Mm-hmm.
things that twine together and come,
Hmm.
manifest themselves through us in a variety of ways.
It's true because we all have those elements in our body.
Mm,
Yes,
yeah.
we like focusing on the three, sun, ascendant, and moon, because we want to start this practice. But those who are listening and are very advanced and already knows a lot about it, they can definitely pinpoint like in a very hierarchic way, like one, two, three, four,
Hmm.
like what is the main element, what
Hmm.
is the like second element, and just basically know when there's know when there's one element over the other. Like you
Yes.
know when you're too much fire, you know when too much
Hmm.
air, because you have all of them.
Yes.
And so it's good to play with. When you're more advanced, you're just gonna know, you know. But it's the air element when I linked it to the mythology or the Greek, I linked it to Egyptian god that is a god of wisdom and writing and magic. Because for me, air signs have the power to create spells
Hmm. Well,
and
yes,
play
spellcrafting
with
is very
the
air.
yeah
Yeah.
for me the guiding lights of ritual because how they put their word in a very poetic way or how they use the words really to open portal. It's yeah it's they have the power to channel, so they definitely there's a
Yeah.
channeling
Thoth is
part.
perfect. And he is the mercurial god.
Yeah,
So like it's
exactly.
pretty, like, that's definitely very, very on theme. And speaking of, transmutation, transformation, you know,
Yeah.
the mirroring of something, that something in the underworld may be different in the physical world or in the heavens, and like that
Hmm.
transition. I think that also that ability to move between, like, we kind of think of air as being just like in the heavens, but like these spirits, particularly the mercurial spirits, they are actually some of the only spirits that can move between the heavens and the underworld.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that also is very powerful in regards to spell casting and spell crafting and speaking truth, or speaking to, change people's minds.
Yeah. Yeah, they will. My sister is an Aquarius. Oh
Oh,
yes, she will push it until I change my mind.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
Better than stagnant.
exactly. You need to
And
be
that's speaking
fluid.
as an earth sign, like better than stagnant.
Yeah, and I just like them when I was talking about the Egyptian god like Thoth, who was like very represent the power of words and ideas and
Hmm.
symbols and the way that they shape literally our reality. So I thought it was like so
Yes.
great for air sign that
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, channel this archetype that speak true to power, literally speak true to power, They teach, they write, they organize, and basically reimagine the system. So
Yes.
Taurus really remind us that you can be revolutionary, and communication is a form of resistance. And through the deep intention of like linking to your magic intention and the sacred language, it is usually words. So,
Yes, absolutely.
so I thought it was like, there's so many, like, when I think about Mercury, like the god that can go, like you mentioned, to all
Hmm.
different realms, there's this power that is constant, like,
Yes,
you know,
and it's like, but it's not a power of like force. It's a power to be able to move.
yeah, 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 definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool.
So let's move to our water signs, our Cancers, Scorpios, Pisces. I call them the healers because we forgot that in a war, a time of chaos, healers are deeply needed.
Yes.
And we often think of the warrior. We often think of the people that just like we talked about it, strategize,
Hmm.
bring consistency, or invoke action, you know?
Hmm.
But we forget those who need to heal, like the community, to be able to move. And
Hmm.
so water sign has brings so much of emotional depth. They understand the lens of emotion in a more deeper way. And they have this intuitive resistance to it and the healing energy to movement. So they are one to nurture the communities. They are one that provide
Hmm.
emotional support. They are therapists. They are cooks. They are moms. You know, they are like the one that nurture us and take care of us. And there's like they use the spiritual guidance to lead change.
Yes.
Because without an emotional understanding of our pattern, of our cycle of what moves us to action, we don't actually heal ourselves or grow emotionally.
And they keep us, I don't want to say human because it's human shit to
I love
ourselves,
that.
but they keep us in love. Like they keep us
Mm-hmm.
moving from a place not of cruelty, but one of like justice or healing,
Mm-hmm.
where we understand that like it's the the broader picture like the air, but in an emotional, spiritual, connected life sense, right?
Yeah.
It's that that is the Piscean energy, that we're all in this ocean of
Mm.
experience, of life, of existence.
Yeah.
And that also, there's patterns and changes in patterns and disruptions in patterns and flows.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that navigating potential turbulences is also, the strength of water signs and energy.
Yeah. And I feel like they are also the intuitive, the
Oh,
one that
absolutely.
connect to the
Yeah.
divine.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that they connect, like where we talk about air signs, say they connect on the brain, on the mental energy,
Mm-hmm.
like the water sun will connect on the heart energy, like you
Yeah.
mentioned love. This is
Mm-hmm.
definitely water sign have always to go back to why are they doing what they're doing. It's in the place of love. They're
Mm-hmm.
the one that maybe grieve the hardest or the most because grief is love and they
Yeah.
feel the deep loss of this love.
Yeah.
And water sign is it's hard to manage because they can let themselves, they are the one that call on us to do self-care, to don't forget to do self-care, to don't forget to talk, to speak about what you feel, how you feel, where you feel it. It's like they
Yeah.
use a huge way of healing people. And some people, they don't even know they heal people. I know some water sign that like they use words or they use a different way to connect with someone and they don't even understand that they are the therapist of their
Yeah.
family. Why
Yeah.
everybody's talking to them about their problem. They
Yeah.
don't know why they're the therapist, you know?
Yeah.
And they don't do this professionally or they're not inclined to do it. They just people feel that they are the one that will
Yeah.
bring
They're a safe space, or somewhere that someone that will at least understand them or have space, hold space for them.
yes, yes. And they are, I'm gonna jump on the shadow side, sorry, because it's so important to understand the water signs in terms of how they fight out there because they are like the issue, the issue is not an issue, but the with water sign, what I see is the main obstacle that they have is the boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries is maybe the harder things to do for a water sign because they need to create a container around themselves to protect them because they're so empathic and can feel
Mm-hmm.
so many things that sometimes they catch on the energy of another person. And so if they will start to not feel well, they will start to feel overwhelmed because they give too much energy or they took too much energy from the other person. So practicing like it can be meditation and creating an armor or a
Yeah.
circle around you, starting from the heart, healing from the heart's water sign. Always think like a light coming from the heart chakra and grow to create a bubble right when you wake up in the morning. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I mean
kind
the
of
circle's
like,
powerful, like powerful and very, and yeah, definitely it could be connected to all of the elements in one way.
yeah.
But it's as a field of protection, as a boundary, like you're saying, like around yourselves, as a containment, especially for like people with more watery energy or energy that can flow out of them, but maybe flow in one direction and it needs to be like contained a little bit more. I think that's a very powerful visualization. And again, using that circle of like connection,
Mm-hmm.
Piscean, you know, it's the end, but the beginning, like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like starting your day with the conscience of like, yes, I'm going to give, but I have my protection. And
mhm.
it's like a visualization again that we feel we can move easy, like it's easier for us, for water signs to move into the world. There's also, I love, I know for water signs especially, I love black tourmaline,
Oh,
obsidian to keep under your nightstand,
hmm.
under the bed, because again, water signs are more subject to attack during the night. And I'm
Hmm.
talking about the spirit world here.
Yeah.
And it is true. They get more like the energy that the spirits takes from them is maybe
Hmm.
higher because they're more connected to that world.
Hmm.
And so having black tourmaline obsidian next to you, or a plant that is protection, like rosemary.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, for sure. Or
Yeah.
rose, like rose,
Or rose.
the root
Yeah.
of rosemary, the rose, is very
Mm-hmm.
powerful for water signs, water energy. It's definitely associated with Venus, but also the moon, especially white roses, and it is in kind of the like grimoire tradition where plants are assigned elements in correspondence magic, or Western tradition, I guess maybe I should say in a more broad sense. Um, Rose is aligned with the element of water. Um, it's also fiery and earthly and airy, but Rose is also very like supreme being. Um, but this healing medicine, whether it's like, the soothing quality of its scent, or it's a nourishing nectar, or the medicine of its petals that we can turn into, blood, like wound cleansing and purifying poultices or tinctures and extracts. Like rose is antimicrobial, it's anti-inflammatory, it is wound healing, it's keeps wounds moist so that they don't scab over and turn into these like gnarly scars. Like rose
Mm-hmm.
is powerful. It's also, the rose hip can be eaten and turned into food. It's food for birds, but they're protected by thorns, right? And so rose is, as a scent, as an extract, or as a plant near you, is a very powerful ally. I'm really glad that you brought her up. Similar magic, but also different magic, are plants like jasmine. White
Mm-hmm.
flowers are very powerful, very aquatic, very lunar, especially since they bloom in the night. They tend to be night blooming, and their scents are more like narcotic and central nervous system quieting, and that can be soothing in the sense of like jasmine is, she's very erogenous as well, she's very awakening and like an aphrodisiac in that sense, but also very soothing to the emotional body, very powerful and useful for grief. I mean, we have white flowers in general are like, we think of them as grief plants, but really they're like emotionally soothing. They're soothing to both the living and the dead. And actually, the one of the molecules that they release is a lily molecule, and we found receptors on our hearts for that molecule.
Mm.
And we don't completely understand what they do or what they inspire the heart to do, but I find it very interesting that we like present people who are grieving with white flowers. Who people who are
Oh,
experiencing really
yeah,
intense emotional turmoil, white flowers are really soothing.
yeah,
They're also really intense magic. That ability to soothe could also be the ability to like entrap and ensnare and, like hypnotize. And, if we're talking about resistance or magic that can be utilized to an end, like, it's not, we can also acknowledge those like protective
mm,
elements, those hypnotic haunting elements or magics that they have, the thorns of the rose that are like actively martially protective, or the ensnaring of Jasmine, like if that's
yeah,
necessary, her ability to bind and to hold fast with her like coiling. So like those are, I think, also like the water. I know we talked about the Norse goddess Freya being
mm-hmm,
our spiritual, divine mythological archetype. And I think that's like super powerful. Again, connecting to like, her as a goddess of love and emotions and protection. Like, it,
mm-hmm,
you know, why are we protecting people? Why are these, the rise of fascism, why is that so concerning? Why does it make us feel deep despair at the things that are
yeah,
being, the harm that's being inflicted on people? Well, it's because like we are creatures of love, like we are compassionate beings, like we are meant to be empathetic. And that empathy, that ability to have compassion for someone who isn't like you or isn't you, is a direct threat to the established order.
mm-hmm. And like you mentioned about Freya, I love it because she's a Norse goddess. She's of magic, sorry, love and
Mm-hmm.
war. She's a powerful one, and she's
Yeah.
known for her beauty, passion, and magic. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought I couldn't find a better goddess for the water sign. How she's she's doing war. She's literally engaging with war and fighting, but she also embodied love, which we talk about for water sign and magic.
Yes.
And she cried literally tears of gold and how the power to choose warriors in battle, connection to love, wars, and magic in one being. It's amazing. And so she's the symbol of emotional power and spiritually sovereignty. She teaches water sign that it's okay to feel deeply and to still be powerful, you
Yes.
know? That
Mm-hmm.
sensitivity is actually a strength, and that healing others often means reclaiming your own emotional truth and in a fire, if you want to call it that way.
Absolutely.
But yes, she definitely, I feel like she's embodied really well the Cancer, the Scorpio, because when you separate the Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, you have Scorpio in the middle. That it is war,
Yeah,
Scorpio.
absolutely.
It's still a water sign. He feel deeply emotional, but he is ruled by Mars, you know? You were mentioning that with the roses and
Yes.
like
Oh,
all
for
these
sure.
different layers. So yeah, it's for water sign, I do like the moon cycle.
Yeah.
Working with the moon cycles, I do think it's a very it strengthens their ability to heal. It make them the moon made them like understand better the pattern and cycle of emotional, like maybe moody, like ups and down feelings that they have. And I just feel like anything that is water-based cleansing, intuitive divination practice, tarot, astrology, like that helps them to protect their emotional well-being, but that helps them to canalize or put not like words, but meaning into what they feel in different way. Poetry, like tarot, more imagery. You know,
Yeah.
when we talk about planet, it's a different way to put
Dreaming.
words into the emotion. You know, it's like using different tools.
Yes, absolutely.
So and yeah, I'm a fan of moon ritual for water. So I just like, yeah, of course, moon. Like
Yes.
that's just like, and I will mention bath again in water, like immerse yourself in
Yes.
water. It's one
You
of,
know, and using those scents that we mentioned in the bath can be a really powerful way
yeah,
in interacting with them.
yeah. And they have a strong shaman intuition. So anything that will make them enhance this gift that they have. They can be through just the sense of knowing, or it can be through seeing or hearing, or whatever they have, and or using, like we said, tarot to has like help their channel, they or enhance the intuition. It's good for them. It's very good for them. That's what they are at their core, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, water sign are healers. I think you were the last one. I think after this long episode going through element by element, I hope that it was helpful for all of you to get to know yourself better. I think it's great to work with element, even in astrology, even if you take only the
Hmm.
element part, you understand yourself so much better.
Hmm.
So much better. It just makes sense in so many level.
And
And
it's
no, I was wanted to say that we need each and one of those elements to have a complete coven, but also have a team of fighters that can
yeah,
support each other,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Hmm. And it's good to have also just the different perspectives that those elements present as well, right? Like to make sure that we are hearing and seeing and experiencing and thinking about things from a variety of different places because people experience things in different ways, and not hearing or refusing to see what's happening to others can, really make it so that you're not aware. And an
Mm-hmm.
awareness can inhibit your work. And I think that, that's the
Yes.
opposite of what we need right now. So like paying attention to
Mm-hmm.
what others are saying is a big deal.
It is. And the collective resistance and the magical activism is also like we mentioned it already, but the importance of rest and healing and community support
Mm-hmm.
in your work, a long commitment and sustainable practices, it prevent the burnout, and
Yeah.
it allowed you to be able to stay informed because it's because we burn out that we stop staying informed and
Yeah.
listening to what's
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Yes. Because
And recognizing when you have to step back and allowing others to lead,
mm-hmm.
honoring cycle of
Especially.
action and rest within resistance movement is going to be key for the next years.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. But yes, thank you, Mauricio.
Thank
Thank you
you. That
for
was really cool. We had talked about a lot of stuff. I hope
yes,
I hope it was helpful for your readers. And I mean, it's always such a pleasure
yes.
to speak with you about anything. So it was very
Oh, thank
fun.
you, Marissa. The same here, same here. So I thank you so much for coming, and I'm gonna say to everyone, see you to the next episode. Like it, comment it, review it, share it with a friend if you liked it. When we are happy to hear your feedback. If you have any insight or anything you want to add, it's welcomed. Feel free to comment it on on the Shopify. I think you can comment and add your comments on Apple Podcasts. It's a little bit more tricky.
Mm.
But yes, feel free to share. We'll be happy to hear about what you think. And I wish you a happy week. Bye bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Modern Witches podcast. We hope you've been inspired to cultivate your own magic and to craft your own spiritual practices. Let us know what sparked your curiosity by leaving us a comment on this episode or leave us a review. And don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode. Your feedback and engagement truly fills our cups. If you're looking for more ways to gather with your fellow witches, please support our work on Patreon. Learn more at modernwitches.org. Blessed be.